China's Neo brain implant just became the first brain-computer interface to receive full marketing approval anywhere on Earth. And the story behind that approval reveals far more than any headline has captured. In March 2026, China's medical regulator granted a Shanghai startup called Neuralink Medical Technology, something no company had ever held before, which was permission to sell an implantable brain-computer interface as a finished prescribable medical product. This wasn't just a research permit or a compassionate use workaround, but a full commercial approval that effectively moved the technology from the lab to the pharmacy shelf. Elon Musk's Neuralink has owned the public conversation around brain chips for nearly a decade, yet a company most people have never encountered just cleared the regulatory bar first, raising the question of whether China and Neuralink are even running the same race. The real story isn't about who won, because in regulatory terms, that answer is obvious, but rather what this approval actually covers, and more importantly, what it doesn't. Brain-computer interfaces have existed as a scientific ambition since the 1970s, but for decades, they stayed locked inside university labs and tethered to bulky hardware. The turning point came when the question shifted from whether we can read the brain to whether we can do it wirelessly and safely at a scale that helps real patients. While corporate brain implants are often framed as born-from-nothing breakthroughs, they are actually engineering translations of decades of academic science. And as of March 2026, we finally have the first answer to who can build a device reliable enough to leave the research ward. The device itself is called NEO, short for Neural Electronic Opportunity, and it's manufactured by a company listed as Neuracle Medical Technology. Picture a coin-sized unit embedded flush with the skull, sitting directly over the motor cortex, which is the brain region that governs voluntary movement. 8 electrodes rest on the outer surface of the dura mater, the brain's protective membrane, without ever piercing brain tissue. Think of it like pressing a microphone against the outside of a wall rather than drilling into the room, which means you lose some detail but you avoid tearing through the delicate structure of the brain itself. When a patient imagines moving their hand, those 8 electrodes pick up the electrical field and transmit the signal wirelessly to an external processor, which decodes the intention into simple commands like grasp or release. This command then inflates a soft robotic glove worn on the paralyzed hand, creating a loop where the person thinks grip, and the glove grips. Neuracle developed this system alongside Tsinghua University, and by the time approval landed, over 30 patients with chronic quadriplegia had received the implant. Investigators reported a 100% improvement rate on hand grasp function scales, which is a striking number, though it comes with a serious caveat. Neuracle is a relatively small operation with disclosed funding of around 10 to 11 million US dollars, whereas Neuralink occupies a different universe of capital, backed by over $1.2 billion from investors like Sequoia and Founders Fund. Neuralink's valuation sits somewhere between $9 and $15 billion, and they employ a specialized surgical robot to implant a device with over 1,000 electrodes, which is 100 times the channel count of the Neo system. If Neo functions like a walkie-talkie, Neuralink aims to be a full broadband connection, enabling complex tasks like editing videos or playing chess with only a thought. Yet despite this massive bandwidth, Neuralink still has 0 approved products anywhere in the world. This contrast exposes 2 different strategic bets, where Neo deliberately narrowed its scope to clear the regulatory bar with one simple indication for hand grasp. Neuralink is betting on a platform, and while their demonstrations are impressive, they remained confined to research protocols with no formal marketing submission to the FDA. Neo won by narrowing the goalposts, while Neuralink is still running a much longer and riskier race. The reported 100% improvement rate sounds extraordinary, but as of early 2026, the precise data and safety profiles haven't appeared in peer-reviewed journals, and detailed complication rates remain unavailable. Eligible patients are also limited to a narrow age group with specific spinal cord injuries, and the restored function is limited to power grasp, which means picking up a cup, but not fine motor control or finger dexterity. However, there is the fascinating case of a patient named Dong, who after 2 years of BCI training, was able to write his nickname with his own hand even after the device was removed. Neurosurgeons interpret this as evidence of dormant pathways being reactivated, suggesting that Neo might function as a rehabilitation catalyst rather than a permanent prosthetic. This model is conceptually different from the permanent brain-machine integration that defines the Neuralink narrative, But as this technology moves forward, structural questions remain, especially regarding what ethicists call neural personal information. China's framework for protecting the data your brain generates is still underdeveloped, and ownership of that data or vulnerability to hacking are open concerns. These same questions apply to Neuralink with equal force, particularly the risk of abandoned neurotech, where patients are left with unsupported hardware in their skulls if a company fails or pivots. Neuralink faces its own transparency problems, with milestones often announced through posts on X rather than peer-reviewed publications. And Elon Musk has publicly suggested the tech could eventually address autism or depression, claims that scholars describe as unsupported speculation. Hype is not harmless in medical technology, as it shapes expectations in ways that erode trust when reality falls short. China's state policy makes it clear that brain-computer interfaces are a strategic industry, with plans for national industry clusters by 2030 and over 10 invasive human trials currently underway. The geopolitical framing of China versus Silicon Valley is real, but a more meaningful tension sits underneath, which is an architectural choice between two philosophies. One philosophy says to lower the invasiveness and take the regulatory win now, while the other says to maximize bandwidth and bet that the clinical proof will follow the engineering. NEO represents the first approach, while Neuralink represents the second. Both carry genuine promise and risk, and for the people who might benefit from these devices, the timing of an approval matters far less than whether the technology actually works safely for as long as they need it. What happened in March 2026 is a genuine milestone, but in medical technology, milestones are not finish lines. They are checkpoints on a much longer course, where the gap between a press release and reality is measured in individual human lives. The investigation continues. This is beyond human. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you find videos like this informative. See you in the next one.